In every dysfunctional family, there's an internal war between the golden child and the black sheep of the family, otherwise known as the scapegoat. This long-standing war has been ongoing since childhood, and this war is essentially fueled by jealousy and envy that the golden child has towards the black sheep or the scapegoat. Usually, this war is motivated by the dysfunctional parents pitting the children up against one another to compete for their attention. Okay? The child who becomes the most productive within the family essentially will become the golden child. And because of this, the children will begin as regular, healthy competitions. And over time, it will develop into full-blown competitions and sometimes even hatred. In this video, we're discussing the love-hate relationship between the golden child and the black sheep of the family, otherwise known as the family scapegoat. But before we get into it, I'd like to take a moment to say hello and welcome to everyone. If you're new here, I go by the name Inspire Seeker, and on this channel, we discuss spirituality, personal development, and narcissism. So if any of that appeals to you, or if you feel called to, then by all means, stick around, and I promise you will not regret that decision. Now, if you identify as a scapegoat or the black sheep of your family, then chances are you have a sibling who has been in some serious competition with you since your childhood. This competition is usually fueled by the dysfunctional parent, as I mentioned earlier, pitting the kids against each other in competition for the parents' attention. Essentially, each child fighting to become the apple of the parent's eye. Now, as we learned previously, the golden child is usually the model child, right? This is the child that's being groomed and shaped into represent the parents, okay? And then we have the scapegoat, who is the sacrificial lamb, who is to be blamed for everything that goes wrong within that family. Though this competition might have started as a simple, innocent competition within the family unit, within the home, over time, it will mature into a full-blown competition where one child would develop hatred towards the other child. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, the dysfunctional parent or parents usually contribute to this competition, which leads to more dysfunction within that family unit. Okay. First, let's take a look at the golden child. Okay. The golden child is usually the apple of the parent's eye, right? This is the child who is essentially the model child, who is being groomed to represent the parent. Okay. The child who is the perfect child, right? They could do no wrong, no matter what it is. They're the most favorite child. They get all the attention. They get the admirations. They get the presents. They essentially get the lion's share of the parents' love. Okay, because they're being groomed into becoming an extension of the parent, essentially. Okay, so no matter what it is that these children do, they'll still be seen as the perfect child. Now, this child usually never fully mature because they're always gonna be an extension of the dysfunctional parents. All right. And the reason I'm saying this is that the dysfunctional parents will always control aspects of this child's life because they're essentially molding them into becoming a representation of themselves. Okay, so this child never really gets a mind of their own. They never really get a life of their own because their role within that family is to make the parents proud. So they have to stick to the game plan. They have to stick to the program. They cannot divert from that role because then that will be rebelling against the parent. They will lose their spot as the golden child. Okay, that dysfunctional parent will not hesitate to select another golden child. Okay, so essentially this child is always connected to the dysfunctional parents. Okay, they're always going to be connected to them. They will never fully become independent, and typically they can never exit that dysfunctional family. They may attempt to exit or detach, but that only works momentarily, and then they're right back within that unit. Okay, they're right back within that position, within that role. Okay, so that's the golden child for you. Okay, they usually get the lion's share of the dysfunctional parents' love, their affection, finances, sometimes everything. Okay, on the other side is the black sheep. Okay, as we know, part of being a black sheep is unequal treatment, unfair treatment. Okay, this individual does not get the same admiration and attention from the parents as the golden child. Okay, but they usually get used to it and they often become independent early on. Okay, when they notice that they're not being included in things, they're being excluded most of the time, they're not being celebrated, their opinions don't really matter within the family, and all of those things, they quickly learn how to become independent because within that dysfunctional family, most of the time, the scapegoat or the black sheep will get picked on by the other siblings. They will get bullied by the other siblings. As I said, they will not be included in certain activities. They will not be invited to certain functions. Their opinions will never really be considered. They're usually the last to know about things that's going on within the family. But this is the truth teller within that family, and they often notice all the dysfunctional patterns within that family. And so as they're growing up and they are facing all of these things, not feeling like they're part of the family, not being treated fairly, feeling like the family does not love them the same, feeling like they're not part of the family, they essentially become outcasted at an earlier age. And they usually resort to individual activities. They self-isolate and resort to individual activities to soothe themselves and also to prevent themselves from being subjected to more abuse or more pain or more dysfunction. Okay, but what happens while they're doing this is that they build themselves up. Okay, this individual is usually very intelligent, and so they built themselves up to become independent. All right, and as these two children grow up, right, you have the golden child who is an extension of the dysfunctional parents. Okay, and then you have the black sheep who is an independent child, but who is now used to being blamed for all the dysfunction within that family. So what happens as these children grow up is that the golden child is gonna expect the black sheep to stay within the family unit to keep the toxic cycles going, okay? Because in order for the toxic cycles to continue on, every member of that unit has to stay in the same position. However, the scapegoat or the black sheep has a mind of their own, and they're very independent, okay? They've trained themselves to be very independent at an early age, and so they make their own decisions, and they don't quite really care about what anybody else thinks. It's all about how they think and how they feel, as long as they're not hurting anybody, okay? So when they decide that enough is enough, they're not willing to beat the family's garbage can anymore, they will make a decision and move on. This will trigger the golden child, okay? Because for the golden child to continue being a golden child, there has to be a scapegoat. There has to be a garbage can. There has to be someone to point the finger at as the bad child, okay? And so that's what the love-hate relationship between these two children stems from, okay? The golden child wants the scapegoat to stay in that same position so they can always be looked at as the bad person, right? They can always be blamed as the troublemaker, okay? And as long as they're like that, the golden child loves the scapegoat, as long as they're in that position, okay? But when the scapegoat decides that, no, that's not my rightful place, I am not a bad child, and they decide to move out of that position, that love turns into hate towards the scapegoat, because now the cycle cannot continue. Now they can no longer be a golden child, okay? They have to face their own shortcomings. They have to face their own truth, okay? And so this is a secret competition that's been ongoing, and it's been going on since they were children, okay? The truth of the matter is, the scapegoat usually is not competing. The scapegoat is more about building up the family, okay? The golden child is essentially competing for the parents' attention, all right? And so whether they were chosen to be the golden child naturally or through some form of hard work, they work to accomplish certain things to become the hero child, one way or the other, the golden child is always in competition with the scapegoat, okay? These two children are not identical, okay? Intellectually, the scapegoat is way more intelligent than the golden child, okay? Oftentimes, they're a lot wiser. They have more skills. They're more gifted. They're more talented than the golden child, okay? However, the golden child is always envious of the scapegoat because of these qualities, all right? And this is what fuels that competition most of the time, because they wish they had these gifts and these talents and these intellects that the scapegoat has that would help them in their pursuit to be the ultimate golden child. And so they'll always be envious of the scapegoat, all right? Another reason is that since the golden child is being groomed to represent the parent, they never fully mature into themselves. They never fully mature into their own independence, okay? They're always going to be an extension of the parents, okay? The scapegoat, on the other hand, is fully matured and fully independent. It makes their own decisions, has very strong boundaries, is very strong-willed, is very strong mentally and spiritually, and is able to stand on their own too and be independent without support from the family. The golden child is essentially an extension of the parents, so they never really fully mature into their independence. They're always going to be an extension of the parents, okay? So they never ever fully mature into themselves. And this is another reason why the golden child is so envious of the scapegoat, because they see that the scapegoat is a fully independent child and they're not. Okay, this is the reason why they want the scapegoat to remain in that position, because with them being in that position, it keeps the spotlight off for the golden child and on the scapegoat as the bad child all the time. Okay, but without the scapegoat being there now, the spotlight goes to the golden child, and so all their flaws are highlighted and they are essentially now being seen as imperfect, right? Or they feel like they're being judged, essentially, right? But mind you, this is the child who is the perfect child for the parents, okay? So no matter what, they're always going to remain the perfect child, okay? But here now, as these two children grow up, the scapegoat will love the golden child unconditionally, okay? But the golden child will love the scapegoat conditionally. And the conditions of that is, as long as they're in that scapegoat position within the family, then they will receive love from the golden child, okay? But if they decide to exit the family unit, if they decide to exit that scapegoat position, then they no longer deserve the love of the golden child, okay? So essentially, this is what fuels that love-hate relationship between these two. The scapegoat is usually more talented and more gifted, and usually has more to offer than the golden child, okay? And these are qualities that the golden child wish they had, because that would make them the ultimate golden child. But since they don't have these qualities, it makes them feel a bit inferior when they compare themselves to the scapegoat, okay? But meanwhile, the scapegoat is supposed to be the bad child, right? The child who will never amount to nothing, all right? But yet, they have all these qualities that the golden child is envious of, okay? And so this is another reason why there's always going to be friction between these two children, all right? Because in order for the golden child to remain a golden child, the scapegoat has to remain a scapegoat, okay? And when the scapegoat realizes that they're being the family garbage can, they will essentially pack up and move on with their lives, because they're there temporarily to sustain the family. That's their goal. That's what they're seeing, okay? While the other dysfunctional members of the family are looking at them as the garbage can, they're looking at it like, I'm here to help sustain this family. So once they realize that efforts are being taken for granted, they will pack up and leave. And at that point, the golden child can no longer remain a golden child, okay? Because all their imperfections, all their flaws, and everything will be highlighted for the dysfunctional parent to see that their perfect child, their perfect model child, isn't so perfect after all, okay? And so something that started as innocent competition within the household, over time, as the children grow up and continue to vie for the parents' attention, continue to work to be the apple of the parents' eye, it turned into a full-blown love-hate relationship where one child only loves the other child only if they're within the family system. But once they break out of the family system, that love is gone. Meanwhile, the other child is loving their sibling unconditionally. Okay, so that's the love-hate relationship between the golden child and the scapegoat. Okay, the golden child is usually envious and jealous of the scapegoat for the positive qualities that they embody, their gifts and their talents, and these sorts of things. Okay, also for their independent nature. Okay, the scapegoat can break off away from the dysfunctional family and be on their own without a care in the world. The golden child cannot, okay, because they've been groomed and they've been shaped to become the model child for that dysfunctional parents, okay? And so they can never be fully independent. They're always going to be an extension of the dysfunctional parents, okay? I hope I made it clear enough. If you identify as a black sheep, then know where you stand, and I'm pretty sure you can confirm for me in the comment section how your relationships has been with your siblings, okay? Take a moment to share your thoughts and your experiences in the comments, and also share these messages with your loved ones so we can all continue to learn together, all right? Also, if you're new here and you found value in this, then by all means stick around, because there should be another video or playlist popping up somewhere around my head here. Stick around and get more information on the spiritual awakening journey and narcissism. Other than that, I'll leave this one here. Until next time, guys, peace, love, and more life.